Hello and welcome to this little island amid the ocean that YouTube is. Being one of the oldest movements in global history, we find within feminism many complex ideas and values, many times leading to sub-movements within the feminist umbrella that build on or fight each other. Regardless, the common goal is to end gender discrimination. And to simplify the historical evolution of feminism, the metaphor of waves is often used. But let's start by understanding the word feminism itself. In 1837, French philosopher and utopian socialist Charles Fourier coined the word feminism, with "femin" coming from the Latin word femina, woman, and the "ism", a suffix derived from the Greek ismos, a noun ending signifying the practice or teaching of a thing. Thus, widely heard and spread nowadays, feminism is based in the belief of social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. As per the Council of Europe states, the term feminism has been interpreted in fuller and more complex ways as understanding has developed. It is important to understand in which context the movement started, and to speak of feminism, we need to understand what sexism is. According to the European Institute of Gender Equality, sexism is linked to beliefs around the fundamental nature of women and men and the roles they should play in society, associated with actions or attitudes that discriminate against people based solely on their gender. Being a feminist is not something exclusive to any gender and/or sex. Its general goal is to put an end to sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression, and to achieve full gender equality in law and in practice. Throughout humankind history, there has been multiple men and women who have fought for a more egalitarian society. In the French Revolution, for example, women led the demonstrations that started it, yet its culmination did not bring recognition for women's rights, leading, for example, in September 1791, Olympe de Gouges, a French social reformer and writer, to write a declaration of the rights of women and of the female citizen, in response to the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, thus exposing the failure of the French Revolution to recognize gender equality. Much prior to that, Christine de Pizan, a French poet and author, wrote in 1405 the Book of the City of Ladies and its sequel, Book of Three Virtues, in which Christine questions women's roles in medieval society. The correlation between education and the questioning of society order is unparalleled. It is thus not surprising that what is considered to be the first women's movement began in North America, where women were allowed to go to school sooner than in Europe. The first activists traveled around North America and fought for the end of both slavery and women's oppression. They organized the first Women's Rights Convention in 1848 and continued to campaign to improve the social position of all women. The movement also began in Europe with the same broad aims. Activists collected signatures demanding that working women should receive their own wages and not their husbands, that women should be able to own a house and have custody of their children. The first wave of feminism is known as the suffragette movement, and consisted of activism through mass demonstrations, publishing of newspapers, debates, and the establishment of international women's organizations. By the end of the 19th century, it had become a worldwide movement, with many women finally getting the right to vote in most European countries and North America by the 1920s. Later, in the early 20th century, women were allowed to go to university, thus providing women with the right of having both a career and a family if they chose so. With the rise of fascist parties, we observe a rollback, with feminist movements being banned in fascist countries and paused on others as women contributed and focused on the war efforts. Women started organizing again after the end of the Second World War, and they soon gained equal political rights in most European countries, with women's emancipation becoming an important aim and most women being allowed to take on full-time jobs, divorce their husbands, and go to university. Whilst the first wave of feminists was much inspired by the abolition movement, the second wave would be inspired by the civil rights movement. With the first wave of feminism, the main focus was for women to achieve the right to vote, education, and financial independence. Placed by the 1960s-70s in Western Europe and USA, the second wave aim was to achieve women's liberation. During this wave, we find a clear division between feminists, as different groups had different ideas and approaches to how this women's liberation could be achieved. Liberal feminists wanted better equality laws and reform of institutions such as schools, churches, and the media. Radical feminists argue that the root cause of women's inequality is patriarchy. Men, as a group, oppress women. They also focused on violence against women by men and started to talk about violence in the family and rape. Socialist feminists argue that it is a combination of patriarchy and capitalism that causes women oppression. The Union of Women in Italy, which had been founded in 1945 under a different name, became known, for example, for its pro-divorce and pro-abortion rights campaigns during the 1970s and 1980s. After those years of political public activities, the Italian feminists decided to change society by changing themselves, as sort of working in the background. The Italian feminists I met, especially those of the older generations, shared a radical interpretation of the personal is political adage, believing that social change depended on specific political practices such as the practice of self-awareness, the practice of entrustment, the practice of starting from oneself, and the practice of relationships between women. Of these four practices, that of relationships between women was especially valid for its personal and political implications. And as debate evolved, new fields arose in science, with women's studies becoming a subject at universities and books regarding women's achievements and historical records that were previously overlooked being published. In 1979, at the UN Convention, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women was signed. The implementation of the Convention is monitored by the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, a body of independent experts. The third wave of feminism is mainly referred as the American movement of the 1990s and can be characterized by an increased awareness of overlapping categories such as race, class, gender, sexual orientation. More emphasis was also placed on racial issues, including the status of women in other parts of the world, global feminism. This was also a moment when a number of feminist non-governmental organizations were established, but focusing on specific feminist issues rather than claiming to represent general feminist ideas. An important event that is often attributed as inspiring a new generation of women rights activists was the 1991 broadcasted Anita Hill hearings, in which she testified against a Supreme Court nominee for sexual harassment. The main issues that concerned this third wave were sexual harassment, domestic violence, the pay gap between men and women, eating disorders and body image, sexual and reproductive rights, honor crimes, and female genital mutilation. Second wave feminist achievements allowed the newer generation to enjoy more rights and power, allowing them to express themselves more openly. This was also a wave of reclaiming. On her article, Four Waves of Feminism, Rapton mentions a rebelling of the new generation as they pushed away against their mothers with a grudging gratitude. An aspect of third wave feminism that mystified the mothers of the early feminist movement was the readoption by young feminists of the very lipstick, high heels, and cleavage, proudly exposed by low-cut necklines that the first two phases of the movement identified with male oppression. Pink Floor expressed this new position when she said that it is possible to have a push-up bra and a brain at the same time. Another good example of this is that words that were usually used for derogatory purposes were appropriated to subvert sexist culture and deprive it of its weaponization. The growing use of the internet would allow for different ideas and perspectives from all around the world to be heard, further expanding and developing feminism. The existence of a fourth wave of feminism is still somewhat questioned. Some believe we are still in the third wave, since there is not a clear shift, but rather a continuous growth of the movement. Yet, to those who already identify the existence of a fourth wave, they say it is characterized by cyberfeminism, with social media activism propelling the movement further into a technological age. Considered to be a predecessor of networked feminism, which refers generally to feminism on the internet, for example, mobilizing people to take action against sexism, misogyny, or gender-based violence against women. Like many movements and society overall, the term feminism has evolved since its conception. It followed, and in a way, as we saw throughout the video, was hand in hand with other crucial movements such as the abolition movement and civil rights movement. The key word for feminism is equality. It is not about one being better than the other, but rather of having the exact same opportunities and allowing people, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, and/or race, to choose if they do or not take said opportunity. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and please let me know in the comments if this video was interesting to you and if you have anything you would like to add. Were you aware of these waves of feminism? Were you unsure what feminism meant? Feel free to share your knowledge below. Stay safe.